My guilty pleasure, yes, it's true, is that I've always fallen for fictitious men. Real men are so undependable. Compared to someone like U.S. Marshal Raylan Givens. I know where to find Raylan. Every Thursday at 9 o'clock on FX. There's Raylan, a long, cool drink of water way too fast on the draw. Lately I've been falling for Boyd Crowder, that little weasel guy with the funny haircut, because I like the way he treats Eva. Like he might lose her if he breathes heavily around her. He's painfully polite. Everyone is terribly polite in hill country, which doesn't prevent them from blowing someone away in the dining room. Eva killed Boyd's abusive brother at dinner, but everybody has blown away someone near or dear to someone on that show. I pay it no mind.
Back in 1950, TV was my babysitter. And I was forming my ideas of the world based on movies of the 30s and 40s. This was when I saw the 1935 movie Captain Blood that made Errol Flynn a star. He was handsome, he was principled, and he showed the lovely Olivia de Havilland admiration and respect. When he was treated unfairly, he became a pirate. He was a man able to think outside the box. It seemed that a nice pirate might be the man for me when I grew up. While I was thinking this, I saw another movie. It was Golden Earrings, starring Ray Milland and Marlene Dietrich. In it, Ray Milland is a straight-laced military officer. He's sent into Hitler's Germany to get a secret formula from a disillusioned scientist. Marlene Dietrich is a gypsy woman who shelters him. To complete his gypsy disguise, she pierces his ears. When I watched the movie again recently, I saw that he only said, "ow," twice, once for each ear. I had remembered it as a much bigger fuss, possibly because I was so astonished by the whole relationship, in which it was the woman who had all the answers and told the man what to do with complete confidence, and the man actually listened to her. Ray Milland went on to behave bravely and get the formula back to England, but his pierced ears showed that his experience had changed him in ways that could not be undone. And like a helpless baby duckling, I imprinted romantically on Ray Milland's earlobes. When I was about 7 years old and living in Chicago, I had a boyfriend who hailed from some nowhere place in the hills of Appalachia. You know, like Harlan County, where Raylan and Boyd are from. Blonde, blue-eyed, with a crew cut. He adored me. He followed me around. And then he didn't. I hear his mother and my mother talking. His mother says, "Nikki was Richard's first girlfriend." I noticed the past tense. I thought, I had nothing to say about this. I had nothing to say about him following me around like a puppy, and I had nothing to say when he stopped. My irritability with the lack of choice, in particular my lack of agency in matters of the heart, has only grown fiercer with time. That didn't stop me from getting married, but my heart was never in it. I was rather shy growing up, and the face I was born with said to the world that I would be reliable in an office and possibly vote Republican. My outward appearance did not match my inner yearnings. In college, while I looked longingly at the philosophy majors, I was asked out by guys in the economics department and the business school. Things went on much the same after college, until somebody new turned up in my circle of acquaintances. He had just moved here from Detroit. He was an art school dropout. And there in his ear, when I had almost given up hope, was the earring. Of course I married him. But it turned out that his outward appearance and his inner yearnings were also somewhat mismatched. It was not a long-term success.
In a darkened room, which made it hard to read, we played Spin the Bottle. I was bored, and as I say, I was trying to read, and lots of boys wanted to kiss me. Possibly my troublesome hormones had not yet reared their ugly heads. But the situation of my lack of interest, combined with the intense interest of the little boys, is a continuing theme of my life. I really mean the part where I am completely out of sync with everyone. The part where I am thinking about leaping on him, and he is intent on explaining the difference between socialism and communism. The part where he looks past me to another woman. The part where he doesn't call. The part where I understand the impulse to boil someone's pet rabbit. In another time, in another darkened room, at the tip-top bar of the Allerton Hotel, someone who used to be one of those cute sailor boys that girls flirted with so easily leans forward and says, "If things continue to go the way they are, we should get married." Married? I repeat with shock, trembling like Joan of Arc, being given the choice of being burned at the stake or spending the rest of her life in a tiny cell with one window placed too high to see anything. He got over it. They all do. In a year, he was married to a woman with a name quite similar to mine.
When I was in my mid-30s, I met Dieter on a Sierra Club canoe trip. He was in his 20s. We canoed compatibly. And he invited me to an outdoor concert. As we sat on the grass listening to music, he kissed me, and I kissed him back. He looked into my eyes and said, "I've always wanted to be disciplined by an older woman." I wondered what he meant by that. Specifically. Dieter described his interactions with his previous girlfriend. Her behavior seemed to me to be arbitrary and bossy, and I couldn't imagine imitating it. And he wanted me to spank him and tell him how bad that he was. I liked him. How could I say hurtful things to him? I decided I could berate him for not being able to control his sexual urges. I had always been a kind, thoughtful person, and this verbal aggression was a completely new and strangely delicious experience. Over time, I became increasingly enthusiastic. I didn't spank him very hard, but he didn't seem to mind. He also wanted to spank me, but it turned out that he didn't spank very hard either. And he always asked if the handcuffs pinched. As a matter of fact, in spite of the trappings, his main concern seemed to be that neither of us ever spent a moment of actual discomfort. which probably increased his pool of willing partners quite a lot. Dieter talked about going to San Francisco, and after a while, he packed up his handcuffs and went, leaving me with quite a bit of knowledge I hadn't had before.
The sailor boy who proposed to me at the Tip Top Lounge in the Allerton Hotel is on the phone. It's 40 years later.
No.
He is deeply bored. He's gone to every reunion possible. He's run out of distractions. His wife is at the end of her rope. She suggests he call some old girlfriends. He calls. I'm at first uninterested, and suddenly we are flirting seriously. I don't know how we proceed from flirting to arranging a rendezvous at a hotel in another state. I think it had to do with having seen the same movies during our youth, because we suddenly find ourselves talking like Bogart and Bacall. I think I may even be Bogart. I am so turned on, I can hardly stand. I have to walk by holding onto chairs. This frantic lust lasts 1 year and involves many airplane trips, then disappears without a trace. He is back to his wife, and I think of him with a total lack of interest. This is the great mystery of sex. I will never understand it. I would like to digress here into the subject of hotels that you meet married men in. They have names like Holiday Inn Express and La Quinta Inn and Suites, and they serve gigantic buffet breakfasts to large, poorly dressed families. Perhaps those hotels killed our lust.
Very possibly. But you never know when the fuel for that fire is going to run out. It's good when it runs out for both of you at the same time. So when you look back on it, it wraps up into a neat beginning, middle, and end. Like an episode on your own movie channel.
June's tragedy is that no one noticed her resemblance to Marlene Dietrich. Mine is that my parents didn't leave me in the state with horses.